Let's get this train up there. Okay, so the Coalition of the Willing started out with all these countries, dozens of countries, that were supportive. We've seen it dwindle, and we call it a coalition of the coerced, because they're kind of being forced by their ties to the American government and money system to stay there. But it's a very weak coalition. There's hardly anyone. Britain was the second largest country in terms of numbers of troops on the ground in Iraq. They just pulled 2,500 of their troops out. They have hardly anyone on the ground in Iraq, compared to over 100,000 soldiers we have and over 150,000 private contractors.
Yeah, in Britain, didn't it go through Parliament? They're actually already on a plan to get rid of it.
Yeah, timeline for withdrawal. So our international allies are totally waning. And then in terms of this moral respect and reputation at home and abroad, we have the power to change that. You know, if you're ever traveling outside this country and you're speaking with people and saying Americans don't approve of this war, but we have to take the action to make it stop. We have to, that's the power of the people to restore that, because everyone looks at us and says, aren't you supposed to be a democracy? Didn't you vote for Bush? You know, if you're really this big country promoting freedom, you know, you have to regain that reputation, and we have a terrible reputation, not only because of Iraq, but many awful things that we do around the world, torture in Guantanamo, arresting people without a warrant.
The coalition's getting weaker. You can see it.
Yeah, it's really...
His arms are starting...
He's going to collapse. Yeah. So let's see. All we have left is the Iraqi government, and we know that they want a timeline for withdrawal.
Okay.
Right?
Can I go
so
now?
You are going to leave. All right, we have a derailed train. Good job holding it down to the last minute, but unfortunately you were defeated.
It wasn't acting. You know what's sad is that you're so gullible you bought my acting.
Oh. So wait, let's give it up for our train for volunteering. Awesome.
Yes. I have a question.
Yeah.
I was thinking, you know, there's, I guess, a lot of people who, I guess, probably me as one of them, would be more active in protesting our government and, you know, the war if they weren't worried about, I guess, existing in other ways. Like, I mean, I guess if you're putting all of your attention into protesting, it's hard to, you know, keep a steady job, make money to survive in America. And so I was wondering if you had any suggestions on how to, I guess, make it and still be a, you know, active
Sure.
American.
Well, I'm really fortunate in that I'm one of the very few activists that actually I get paid full-time to do this work, but there are paid positions out there for organizers and activists, and there's funding. You can apply for grants to do it. But the majority of people that are active are doing this nights and weekends and time when they have time off. It doesn't take that much time to make massive change. To say, I'm just going to give 1 week of my life to go to D.C., just 1 week off. And I've got to have free housing and very cheap food while I'm there, and I'm going to protest in Congress. That makes a big difference. Or 1 week to go to Texas when Cindy Sheehan was there camping outside of Bush's ranch. You know, or even I'm going to go around my community and put up, I have these funding war stickers. I don't know if I brought any of them in. But you can put up on stop signs. That then makes it say stop funding war, so changing the messaging. Sending an email to all your friends saying, will you call Congress this week? Or will you write this letter to the editor? You know, it doesn't take a ton of time to make change. So I think that's you know, one thing. But find a social justice job. Find a way to teach in the classroom. Or run for office, because we need more people like you in office. I wanted to also just go back to like our demo to people that were watching the train fall. What were you feeling when you saw this train coming apart? What did it feel like?
Euphoric sense of dreaming.
Okay. One more. What? Yeah.
Happiness that the war was stopping.
All right, great.
What's that? Say it again.
Happiness that the war was stopping.
And what did it feel like when you were in the war and you were being asked to leave?
And I was happy that I was asking to leave, but I was unhappy that I was in the war.
Okay. But probably if you were actually your character, if you were in the war, you would be sad that you were having to stop doing something that you were really enjoying doing or, you know, profiting off of in some way. So I just want to ask, what was missing in this model? You were kind of starting to get at it with your comment about euphoric dreaming. What's missing in this model? Well, the facts that I was telling you are true. They're real polls, and they're things that we are doing.
Not what you were saying, but just like when, I don't know, I mean, I think that on your war train there should have been, instead of, I think war profiteers are a big part of it, but I think should have been somebody with a sign that said capitalism.
Mm-hmm, sure. That could be definitely part of it.
I don't think that I think right now we should be fighting to stop the war, to stop the war, but I don't think that it's like, well, we stop the war, then what happens then? I think that eventually capitalism should be.
There it is. That's what it is. That's what's missing from this model, is we toppled the train and then we went back to questions and answers, right?
Yeah.
We didn't talk about then what happens, which is a bigger question, which is what you're getting at with the capitalist piece, right? Is that if we're going to topple this train, then where are we going to be going? We need another path. We need another road to be going down. So if we're working really hard on stopping a war, and the irony of fighting a war, we also have to be building the world that we want to see, which is, I think, how the farm got started, right? Was trying to create what the world would look like. What's a vision of something that's not euphoric dreaming far away, but is something we can really do to show people another way is possible, another world is possible. And a big part of that is what Liz was talking about, this action, no war, no warming, bringing environmental activists together with peace activists to talk about if we weren't so addicted to oil, if we weren't so addicted to war, then we could be creating another economy. And what that's going to take is breaking down the capitalist addiction to oil and having a peace economy. And a big part of that is creating other jobs so that we don't have to feel like we need to enlist in the army to make money to get to college. If there's green jobs, like people that can be putting up solar panels, that can be developing technologies, that can be gardening and doing urban gardens, that's huge. That's the way to change.
Yeah, that makes me think about, I was at the WTO in Seattle in 1999, and one of the biggest, I think, positive messages out of it was the Turtles Teamsters. And when people, environmentalists, actually got together with Teamsters, and Teamsters, for all of you who don't know, are truck drivers. And there's been a huge split between people who have been for the earth and people who are like working in automobile factories and stuff like that, because they think that the environmentalists are going to take away their jobs, you know. But that's not really true. In fact, there's ways of like creating jobs that are going to be more beneficial to the planet. And so I think that's still a big niche that we haven't, as the peace movement, explored, which is making more ties to union workers and factory workers. That still needs to be done. I think that's something, you know, when I hear about the environmentalists and the peace activists getting together, I would have liked to seen someone from the AFL-CIO there as well. We
do a lot of work with the labor community, especially around shutting down the ports. If we're going to shut down the ports that all the war machines are shipped out from, then we have to have the support of all the port workers and all the unions. So yeah, we definitely, and there's been other conferences and other actions where it's like labor and the peace movement, which is really important to see that kind of solidarity happening.
The working class, I mean, nobody from, I think not even anymore in this Congress, but there was, before the last election, there was one child of a member of all three branches of our government. I mean, like named people, not, you know, like assistants or whatever, but that were actually in Iraq. And you think about it, and it's like you go to Iowa, and there's, you know, some lady, and her, you know, she's 30 years old, has a bunch of kids, has all these kids, her husband, all her kids, the rest of her family, they're all gone.
Right. So what we have to tell our congresspeople, why don't you send your kids if you want to have war so much? Why doesn't Bush send his 2 daughters? You know, but the other piece is the environmental movement. A lot of times we see environmental movement as people that have money and resources driving hybrid cars and having sustainable houses and doing really nice things for the earth. And that's wonderful and great, and it's exciting that those things are no longer looked at as freak things to do, because they used to be. It used to be like, oh, those eco-freak hippie types, those are the people that do this. Now it's like everyone all over the place, mainstream people are buying hybrids, are buying organics, and that's great. But the next step towards that is saying, what about the working class, like you said? What about the people who are survivors of Hurricane Katrina? If we go to them and we talk about global warming and we talk about polar bears being extinct, they might not hear that in terms of being excited about working on it. But if we talk about floods killing hundreds of poor people in this country, if we talk about people not having jobs because coal plants are closing down, and then we start talking about how can we employ and engage working class folks in a green economy. That's going to be the key to bring everybody along, so it's not a movement only of people that have privilege.
How about what can we do here as students, teachers in a school to be more effective? Because that's one of the things we're going to be talking about. We're doing in a radical civics class. They have to listen and boring me for a few months, but then we're going to actually get to do some projects and maybe even go up to Lincoln Davis's office with Liz in the lead and sit in one day. You know, we'll let them know we won't want any students arrested. Only Liz and I will be taken away.
You have to drive yourselves there.
What's that?
How are we going to get back home?
How? Oh, there
We're
you
going to
go.
organize a protest
Boris,
outside the courthouse.
You'll drive.
Okay.
So what else can you all be doing here to...
Support and solidarity.
Yeah. So what else can you all be doing that is... what can you do that's toppling this war train, that's helping to take down all those pillars, and also helping to build the new train tracks of this, is what we call sustainable train, a green train? What can you do?
And I think you can do a lot of things, but I think there's small steps, very small steps that need to be taken to overall, like what you're talking about, like a green economy with like the farm, like a communal green economy. Beside, you know, imagine if the U.S. was a communal green entity. And I think it can happen eventually. There's a lot of things that need to happen before that, like breaking down the war train.
Great. Breaking down the war train, taking small incremental steps on the local level. What else? What do you all think? This is a radical couch over here. What are some things, and you had some great responses when we were just introducing ourselves too, but what do you think we could do here at home that would help build peace? And all these ideas. What's something you could be doing? Huh?
Not yell at each other.
Yes. Huge one.
What was that for people?
Not yell at each other.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a big one. What would help to make that happen?
Talking calmly.
Yeah? Great. Talking calmly. Maybe when you see somebody yelling at someone else, asking them to speak calmly. This is basically what I do, is work with women who are having disagreements, who are having difficulty working together, doing we call it conflict mediation. Working with people, saying your screaming is not going to help you feel better, because what does it feel like when we're screaming at each other, when we're angry?
Painful.
Does it? What's underneath that? What's underneath that anger? It doesn't feel that good.
It feels painful.
It feels painful. Yeah. It feels painful. Sometimes it feels like you can't breathe as clearly. So breathing, getting calm, getting centered, feeling the earth underneath your feet, feeling solid and feeling powerful. Because sometimes when we're yelling at each other, it comes from a place of feeling powerless, feeling intimidated, feeling jealous or frustrated, or that wasn't fair. Saying, how am I going to get my needs met without hurting someone? So that's huge. That's a huge one. So we promote that nationally, big global picture, by saying, let's talk to each other. Let's have the United States and Iran talk to each other instead of threatening to bomb each other.
Exactly.
It's the biggest one. Yeah, do you have one?
No?
What else?
Blow bubbles?
Blow bubbles for peace. That's a huge one. We bring bubbles to a lot of our peaceful protests.
Really?
Because it's better than throwing confetti. You're not littering on the ground. It's a fun way to be fun. I think a big part of it's like having fun with the message.
I want to say, I think it's really important to remember that one person, I get really frustrated because there are a whole lot of people out there who just don't get it and they don't care. They're not doing anything, or they support the war for one stupid reason or another. Mm-hmm. I think, you know that song they keep playing on the radio over and over, Waiting for the World to Change? Mm-hmm. I really hate that message. Mm-hmm. I really hate it a lot because I don't think people should be waiting. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that just because everybody else is not cooperating and just because you don't feel like you're making a lot of difference, I don't think that gives you an excuse to not do anything. You have to be personally accountable to yourself. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how to say what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. That's great.
I don't think that you can not be true to your own personal convictions just because everybody else is not, or because it's not working. You have to do it anyway. So. Mm-hmm.
Yep. That's huge. So then it's about, instead of waiting for the world to change, what are we going to tell people that they can be doing instead? You know, one thing.
I just want to say one thing about that. I've always had this discussion with various colleagues over the years, and in Guatemala, there's a song, No Basta Rezar, and hace faltas muchas cosas para conseguir la paz, which means it's not enough to pray, because there's way too many things to do for peace. And so I've had this argument with some people go, I'm just going to meditate, and I'm not together enough to work for peace anyway. I got to get myself together first. I think, why don't you do both at the same time? You know?
Right, they're both really important. And one can't exist without the other because we need to be whole and healed in ourselves before we can do this.
I just read an article a couple of days ago that said the people that are out protesting and working for peace are happier than people who are not. And that the people that are out there working to make change live longer. And so it's good for your health to be out protesting.
Yeah, it's really true. It feels healthy. I wanted to go on your idea of blowing bubbles. I think that's a great idea. And someone just told me this idea of creating, as a street theater, a bubble bath where you have hot water and cold water, and you're saying our government's really dirty. Our government is really corrupt and needs to take a bath. We need to clean up the mess we've made. We've made a mess in Iraq. Our soldiers aren't going to be able to clean it up, but other things would. And then having bubbles coming out of that bath, maybe as like a poster board, a cardboard, that would be thought bubbles of how you can take action, how you can help clean up the mess that we're in the country. That would be fun thing. Yeah, that'd be fun to do. That's an action you could do. You could make a big art project or make a poster that looks like that.
I love street theater, and during the Vietnam War, there was some really great stuff. As a matter of fact, one of the classic photos from the Vietnam War is a soldier or a policeman holding a rifle towards the protesters, and a protester sticking a flower into that. Everybody's seen that picture, right? That's a classic one.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, we see a lot, like there was 10,000 people in San Francisco the last couple of days, and they did a die-in. But I think we got to still keep being creative in terms of street theater, because it's those images that the corporate press will show if it looks different. If it's just people holding signs, everybody's seen that a million times. And I don't want to take away from the value of that, but being creative, thinking of new ways to capture the attention of people is the way to do it. I mean, the Yes Men have done some really great stuff. Like, I don't know if I told you all this. They started in Portland. When Bush Sr. was in Portland, three of them, one of them drank red liquid, the other blue liquid, and the other white. And then they took this stuff, what's it called, that makes you vomit? Ecocap. And when Bush came out of the Hilton, all of them vomited red, white, and blue on the sidewalk in front of them. And the press picked it up, and Bush Sr. never came back to Portland again. He called it Little Beirut, which we're very proud of, whoever's lived in Portland, of that designation. So that kind of stuff, is very, and that's interestingly enough, that was the first stunt of the Yes Men unofficially. Then they went on to do some really funny things.
One of the things that I saw just last week when I was up in D.C. was the polar bears, the hip-hop polar bears. And they had been sewing polar bear costumes the night before the action. And there were about a dozen people dressed up like polar bears. And they made polar bear masks. And they had a great big sign that said, polar bears against global warming, or polar bears for peace against global warming. No war, no warming. And they went up on the steps of the Cannon Building, and they did this hip-hop dance, these polar bears, and they had somebody, saying, we're the polar bears and we're drowning in the sea, and they went along and did that. And it was really, really juicy. And at the end, they weren't doing anything, actually. They were just walking along the street in a peaceful protest and got arrested, which was kind of interesting. But the thing that happened was, this was what was picked up. All of CNN, all of the local news across the country, you may have even seen it if you watched regular news, was the polar bears.
That's right.
So it was really a very effective strategy, and people were really upset when the cops arrested the polar bears. Why are you arresting the polar bears? Arrest Bush.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So what do you think, folks? Would you be willing to dress up in polar bear costumes or do some kind of fun street theater? Does that sound fun? Yeah?
Yeah.
That could be something really fun. You could take that to Nashville and do something really visible.
Yeah.
Or who here is going to the SOA? What do you think about taking polar bear costumes to there?
Maybe you want to have a different, you have to think of what's a message that conveys the
messages.
School of the Americas is about what? What are you going there to protest?
Right.
I thought about dressing up like a military officer and walking around with a camera and a sign that says, I'm watching you.
That's great.
That's good.
That'd be great. And then what about inviting some other people to come up and do some things to you? Making it a theater, making it dynamic. So you're saying, I'm watching you, and then maybe someone's coming up in a suit and saying, can I pay you to watch them? And because you're being paid off, or maybe someone else is coming up and saying, and holding a giant constitution, right? You were all just studying the Constitution. Maybe you can have the First Amendment and saying, I have the freedom to be here. Don't watch me. Don't tape me. Something like that. You could have some more people involved in that with you.
And this Saturday is the 3rd, and there's going to be a no war, no warming action up in Nashville. And also the Smashing Pumpkins action.
Christina's mom most likely are going to be up in Nashville for the Dracula thing of Smashing Pumpkins.
So what happens?
My mom about the no war, no warming.
That'd be great. Smashing Pumpkins is where you're making compost, right? Cool.
I was about to say, what group was mostly responsible for stopping the Vietnam War? It was the students. Because I was a student at the time, it was the students. It was a massive movement of students across the country that organized and really was the impetus for finally getting us to withdraw from the war. And so you all have incredible power. Really, just think about that. You're told time and time again by the government that you're all powerless, that you're all just a cog in the machine, but each one of you has the ability to make a difference. Sometimes I have a hard time believing that, and other times I believe it, but I really do believe it fundamentally. You, Zach, could stop the war.
What? Huh?
You could.
Yeah, I could. Oh, it takes a lot of work and it takes a little time.
Yeah.
But if I really all went on to it, yeah.
And you could get, if every one of you, if you got 10 people to come up to a demonstration in Nashville, we'd almost have 100 people coming. You know, and if every one of those 10 people that you got to come to the demonstration got 10 people, then you'd have 1,000 people.
Let's wind it up.
And you've got all those 1,000 people to get 10 people, you know, and you see how it goes. It's up to us. It's our responsibility. There's nobody going to do it for us. We saw that in Katrina. The people that were really helping were the people, not the government. We saw that in the fires in San Diego. FEMA didn't do anything. It was the firefighters who were part of the people. And it was the people taking care of each other that made a difference there. So it's really, the government is something separate from our government, which is us. And we are the government, and they are employees. We have to really impress them with that.
That's right. So how many people think that they can make a difference, that you personally can make a difference, make change in this world?
Come on, Noah, you can do it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you've got a brilliant head. You got all these ideas. You got to make a difference.
I believe, sister. I believe.
Well, sign up right here for $14.95. No, just kidding. Awesome. Well, I just want to say that. Did you want to add something? No. Okay. It's really amazing to be in a room with all of you who are so thoughtful, who are really thinking, who have really creative ideas, who are saying we have to make radical change in this country, and what is that going to look like? And who are saying we need to stop speaking meanly to each other, and we need to change. And we get that opportunity to do that every single day, every single minute in our lives. And it's not about being falsely idealistic or fake. It's about being really real about how messed up the world is that we're growing up in. And then thinking how beautiful that we have these models of change that we can learn about. And that there are people like each other that we can work with to make change. So that's...
I like to think about things mostly like this because in science especially, even in the whole format of the world is that, like 100 years ago, or how, women couldn't vote,
That's right.
You could, women were like, punching bags to the American public, emotionally and physically. And then, there was like, there were slaves, and then and there's not that kind of stuff anymore, at least here. And, if that can happen over 100 years, then what can happen over the next 100 years?
Right. Imagine if we could eradicate war. Eradicate having nuclear weapons. That sounds like, Liz and I were listening to this presentation yesterday where this woman was saying, there was a time when people said, one day someone will walk on the moon. And other people said, you're right, you're joking. You're an idealist. You're a heretic. You're crazy.
The world is
And then,
round.
right, exactly. It's been proven time and again. And we invested all our resources in NASA and spaceships, and we made it happen.
And there were people who imagined someday there are going to be little plastic things that we can go to places and buy stuff with. And now there are these little plastic cards that we.
You don't even need money. You don't even need gold. There was a time when we, carrying around weight of things. Now we have money. Now we have credit cards. The internet, right? There's all sorts of amazing things that are happening that prove to us that if we imagine things and we invest our human and our financial resources in it, then it happens.
We published, did you all see our article? Did you see the article in Indie Media? We published an article last week on Indie Media about the farm school. We took our picture and put it up there, and it's on Indie Media, U.S. Indie Media. Now the farm school's up, and I got a bunch of emails from the people running Indie Media. Go, yo, farm school. All right, thanks.
Yeah.
They really appreciated it. So.
Excellent.
Yeah. And you have an article out there now,
Which?
the one against bombing Iran.
Oh, okay, that's out. Good.
Yeah, it's out. And in
Let me
fact,
know.
I have to call today and see what they're doing.
Yeah, let me know if it gets picked up. I'd be interested in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Great.
basically says, like Armand Hammer said, let's trade with people or bring, trade artists. I mean, the Iranians in this country are amazing folks, really, and just Just why would we want to bomb?
We wouldn't want to bomb anyone. But you had an idea. What were you going to say before? Cars?
We invested our money into cars,
Mm-hmm.
and now we have cars.
That's right. And what if we had invested our money instead into another kind of engine that didn't use up all this oil and make us have to go fight wars? So that we
Like
could have it?
diesel
Like
and water?
biodiesel or water, solar.
Tesla actually invented a car that took no material cost off the world.
Right. Yeah.
I would like to comment
Great.
on that. It says biography on him that he was old and he was kind of senile and he needed to test it. But in general theory, that cars can be powered with things that an oil works, but the car didn't work.
But wait.
People that
If
drove
someone
in
else
cars.
who did it different, we made a car like that. Tesla wasn't the guy. He was the other day he said he was.
So we need more research on alternative energy, and maybe you two
These are
could
good
do some
arguments.
research
This is what we
and
should
find
be
out.
arguing about.
Right.
The internet now, though, you can't press information like you used to be able to.
Right.
Because, you know, the things that Maxwell said, we only know, like a quarter of the stuff that the equations that Maxwell made, the other stuff that they don't tell us that got destroyed because it could get destroyed before the internet. You know, the immense amount of possibilities. Because nothing, you cannot shut. You used to be able to shut down one person at a time, but with the internet, you can't shut down. You can't shut down the internet. But they probably could.
Well, actually, they shut it down in Burma. You can't get internet. And as a matter of fact, Indie Media, there's an Indie Media site in Burma that's been shut down. So they have done that. They're able to do that. We're just about at the end of our class time. Anybody has any more burning questions for Rae? Now's the time to ask him. If not,
That's burning questions. If not, then can I teach you all a short song? Yeah?
let's give a
What do you think?
rip-roaring farm applause, appreciation.
Give you all applause.
Yeah.
Just kidding. All right. Do you want a song?
How can
a song or a dance?
any of our students get in touch with you? Do you have an email?
So I
where
have
they
a
can-
card that I can give you if you want to stay in touch, and I also have over here I have bookmarks and I have flyers about Code Pink, so you can take either of those on your way out. And I also have a sign-up sheet, so if you have an email address and you want to get our emails, then you can put it down right
All
here.
right, so they can sign up for Code Pink.
Yep. So put
All
that
right.
up here. Sure.
Show where that shirt goes. Peter has a shirt that has all in pink and an arrow pointing